what's up everybody? It's Lance.
And I'm Jeremy.
And we are Hard to Master, where we take a look at games that are
hard to master.
Such as
Shipwrights of the North Sea, Redux by Garphill Games, and illustrated by the Micho, distributed by Renegade Game Studios.
Shipwrights of the North Sea. Now this is, as Jeremy said, Redux. This is a remake of a 2014 game, although this version of Shipwrights is nothing like the original version of Shipwrights. It's completely rehauled. I suppose it's got the same sort of theme, but definitely it's updated to be more in line with what you are familiar with what Garphill does with their more recent games.
Yeah, it's a little bit more modernized. Yeah. They took the concepts and things and the original North Sea trilogy artwork, and they reworked it into this game, which we both have not played the original, but we both played this one, and we're going to tell you about it and what we think about it.
So with the theme and goal for this game, what you got going on here, obviously this is going to be similar artwork, similar iconography, similar a lot of things to what you are familiar with when it comes to Garphill games. It's going to have some similarities even in terms of feel, like what you're doing with the game sort of feels similar to some of the other games that Garphill has come out with. But the idea with this is you're going to be drafting cards, and you're going to be using those cards to exchange for different resources, different bits and pieces, silver, workers. You're going to be placing workers out on cards, and ultimately you're wanting to progress on these different tracks here, and you'll do that as you build ships. But at the end of 5 rounds, you want to try to make sure that you have the most points. And this is a simultaneous gameplay in which you are going to be playing cards and doing actions, and everybody can kind of do that at the same time, so long as you feel comfortable with everybody knowing all the rules and how to do that the right way. You'll probably be getting more cards and exchanging things, and you want to try to prolong each one of those 5 rounds as best as you can using the cards. But essentially, at the end of those 5 rounds, you got to get as many points as you can. And, victory points going to be the same icon that you see in all of Garphill games. That's the idea with this game. Jeremy, why don't you give us a bit of a little closer look at what the gameplay elements and turn overview is going to be like?
And so before we start, there are different rules based on the player count. The game does play solo, plays 2-player, and then 3 to 5 is going to have a different rule set as far as drafting. But you're going to have a set number of cards based on however many it says. If it's a 2-player game, you have 5 cards. If it's a 3 or more player game, you're going to have 6 cards. And you're going to have these cards in your hand, and you're going to be deciding what you want. If it's a higher player count game, you're going to take one and pass the rest based on the current round's trade card, because it will tell you if you pass clockwise or counterclockwise. Now, if you're playing a 2-player game, you're going to start with 5 cards. You're going to take 2 cards, put them aside, and you're going to pass the other 3 cards. Then you'll take a card off the top of the deck, look at those 4 cards, and you'll pick 2 more. Then you would pass the other 2, gaining 1 more card from the top of the deck, which will give you 3. You will take 2 cards, and you will pick those. Those are your 6 that you will start with, whereas in a higher player count game, you will take 1 pass until everyone has passed and gained 6 cards. Now, once you have your cards, you're going to be able to use them for different things. Now I'm going to get a little plethora of cards so that you can see what we're talking about, because you're going to need workers, craftsmen to build ships. You're going to need huts to send people to go get resources. Now, you don't have to. You could go for a couple of different things, but branching out a little bit will help you to be able to play more, because your craftsmen will be played onto the board. If you're not expelling them for the resource or item that you could get cards from them, and likely instead you could get other resources. But they'll go on the board, and you need them there if you're going to build a longship. So if I want to build a longship, I'm going to have to put a longship down. Now, I am going to need the workers, and this is similar to other games by Garphill Games. Starting in the West Kingdom trilogy, you're going to see this similar iconography, but I need those workers to build that ship. So this guy, well, he works for the Sledgehammer. He is also or a mason, I guess, and then he could pay a coin to be what I need as the carpenter or axeman, as I call him, not X-Men, axeman. And so once he's on the board, though, he's only used once. Now, if I have huts and I spend the workers and the resources needed, well, not only will I gain these benefits here, but I also have a place to send workers. And I also have a place that I can tuck cards, because you can tuck your workers underneath. I could have tucked this guy at the building, spending a gold. And when I do that, now he's available for the whole game to help me build these ships. But if he's on your board, you're going to use him one time and lose him. Use him and lose him. Now, I could place one of these guys, or ladies also. I don't remember what they're called, but they're workers, villagers, yeah. And they're going to give me an ongoing benefit that I use. So if I tuck them spending that gold now, when I go to this hut, I can pay the gold to gain a bunch of money. That's a pretty good return. But you have to have gold, and it's hard to get resources and gold at times. Now I could also, like I said, spend them for the log, or I could spend that ship instead to get the worker. But I could, since he's got this brown border on the bottom, I could just do this action one time and get rid of him. So pay a gold, get the coins. I don't have that ongoing effect, but I could do it one time. This last card is a Jarl, and the Jarl is going to not only give you symbols immediately by paying the gold and tucking them, but if you can keep them there, because you are allowed to remove them to place new people in the hut, kick them out. They're evicted, and you get some new people in there. Well, that Jarl is not only going to give me these symbols, that's going to move me up these tracks that we're about to talk about, but I also have points at the end of the game for them being there. But if you get rid of a Jarl, it's kind of good, because that will give you the gold that you might need to do some different things. Now, you always have one worker called the laborer, which will let him act as any type. And you could do that multiple times, but you are going to need extra gold and extra cards in the beginning of the game to do that. Now, later you'd be able to upgrade him, and whenever you do that, not only does he give you points, but now you just need the gold and not the cards, and he could, as you can see, be any type of craftsman. So, we have these tracks, and we have a military track, we have a trading track, and we have a renowned track. Now, the military track, you want to be the farthest along each one of these tracks at the end of your turn and at the end of the round, because that will give you these heroes. But moving up these tracks will give you benefits as well. So if I can move to where these columns are, these different zones, well, once I get here, I'm going to get a raid card. This raid card will come to the side of my board. Now each round I can take this raid action in addition to playing and sending workers. Well, how do those work? Well, if I was in this first range like red, what's going to be a 4, and it's going to cost me 2 workers to do that raid. And the benefit is on the bottom, so I could get any 2 basic resources and 2 coins for getting rid of those workers. Now, your workers you send out on your board and to your huts, they come back to your resource pool at the end of the round. Whereas these guys are gone. They're lost in the raid. They got hurt or something, but they, sent the goods back to you. I don't know. But on the raid, they did get injured, and they're not going to be in your supply anymore. Now, if I'm up here where blue is, that's in the 7. So now it only costs me 1 worker to spend to gain that benefit. And if I can get to 8 like blue is, now I have 2 raid cards, and I could activate each one of those one time in that round. And again, so if I had those 2 workers, now I can do both raids with 2 workers, which is really nice. Now, the trading track, that's going to, once you get here, give you this income card. Now, income happens at the end of your action phase, and you will gain income for the next round. So this card gives me a worker, and if I upgrade that ship, which we'll talk about upgrading these 3 cards in a second, that would give me 2 workers and a point at the end of the game. Now this card, I'm going to have to tuck under a ship, so I could tuck it under this ship, and that would give me a stone in addition to income. Now, alternatively, I could just do an immediate effect, gaining the worker and the silver and getting rid of this card, putting it at the bottom of that deck. So That's a choice I have to make whenever I take it, and I can't change later. Just like when I place people on the board, they remain there until I use them or lose them. If I want to kick them off to place new ships or new carpenters, I can do that, or craftsmen, but the other ones are either need to be built or gone, and you do not gain the benefit by kicking them off of your board. That's only removing them and discarding them from your hand. Now, if you're on the orange track, the renown track, and you get to this range, that's when you upgrade one of these cards. You can do either the hut, the labor, or the long ship that you start with. Now, these are the same for all of the players. This card is going to be uniquely different for each one. So this one says that the person gets one basic resource, and when they flip it, they're going to gain 2 points at the end, and now that's upgraded that when they send someone, they also get a coin. Now, you also notice that at the beginning of the game, this hut card is going to depict one symbol, and that's the track you start 1 space ahead on. So if it was a blue player, they would start 1 space at the beginning of the game on the military track, whereas somebody else may be on the military track as well, or they may be on one of the other tracks, depending on what huts are divvied out. Now, if you're the farthest, like I said, at the end of the round, you're going to gain one of these heroes. Sven here for the military track will let you gain 1 worker whenever you reach one of the ending zones of any one of the 3 tracks if he's in your possession, because you're the farthest along. So blue would have this, and if it's at the end of the game, you would gain 3 points for being able to have him at the end of the game. Thyra, she will let you spend 3 silver or coins for a gold anytime you want to on your turn, as many as you want. And again, at the end of the game, if you're the farthest along, no ties, you would get 3 points for having her next to your board. Frode, he will be looking at the renown track, and if you're the farthest along that, whenever you build a ship, not a hut, a ship, you will be able to use 1 less resource. You do not gain a resource for the symbol. It just lets you not use 1 resource. And remember, gold can be spent the same way, but it can also be spent when building huts that way. So that's how you do Frode. Now, if you don't have any of these in the round because you are either tied or not in the lead on any of them, you will gain the Randy card. It's kind of a consolation. You will get to use her, and she can spend 2 coins for a card from the top of the deck, as much as you want to do that. At the end of the game, she gives you no points, though. So you're doing that in a turn. We'll flip over the... So we flip over the new round. We draft cards. We take actions. We get income. And then we check for heroes and reset for the next round. If you're playing 2-player, these symbols will tell you where the neutral, the white here is neutral, how far they're going to move up on each track. This is for 3 to 5 players, telling you the rotational drafting pattern. Your trading ability, like currently that card says that you can spend 1 silver for a wood, 2 silver for a sheep, 3 silver for a stone, and you can do that as much as you want on your turn when you're playing these cards and drafting. And this top corner, don't worry about the points. That is only in a solo game, which I have not played to explain, but there is a solo mode that you can look up in the rulebook. There are a few extra solo cards, and they are called the what's the solo people called? They are called the Nemesis cards. So you will have them as well, and maybe some extra different slightly rules with the drafting and stuff, but then that's also what that point value in the corner of the trade cards is going to deal with. So you'll do that 5 rounds, and at the end of 5 rounds, you will tally up. Again, if you can make it to the end of the track, which really is difficult, then you would get points for whichever tracks you're all the way to the end. You gain points for having those heroes next to your board. You're going to gain any points that are from built ships. If they're on your board, they mean nothing. But like right here, that would be points. Some cards will have in-game bonuses on the cards. So like this one, for each column that you've reached, you will gain 3 points for a set of all 3 in that column. And you're really, I mean, I guess you call them rune stones. Once you reach the rune, then you would gain points for each set of runes that you have. But then you'll gain points from these in addition to preset cards, also your upgraded cards, laborers, any Jarls you have underneath. Leftover resources you're going to trade into gold, and you have to have one of each resource to attain that gold, but each gold that you have at the end of the game will be counted for a point. At the end of that, you will hopefully use Garphill's app for scoring. It's a great app to use for all of the scoring. I use it now. Every game seems to be updated to allow you to do that and easily keep track of everybody's points at the end. But you don't really know anybody's points other than what you can see as you're playing the game because there's no score track. So,
and if you're familiar with Garphill games, then probably a lot of that makes sense to you because if you've played one, not that you've played them all, but you have a sense of kind of how a lot of them work. And I would say that this one feels a lot like the West Kingdom trilogy series, but it also feels very similar to Legacy of You, if you've played that, in the sense that you are using a lot of cards to pay for other things or using cards to get more cards to pay for other things. It's a lot of that comboing mechanism, like I'm going to use this to get that, to get this, to get that kind of idea. And so if you're familiar with those kind of games, this one has a lot of the same feels to it. So let's go ahead and get into our thoughts on this particular game. I'll start first and let you guys know, I've played a lot of the Garphill games. I haven't played all of them. As we've already said at the beginning, we've not played the original Shipwrights, but I have played pretty much all the more recent games from Garphill. And to me, this does feel a lot like those other games, like I just mentioned. Legacy of You, in particular, is one that I feel this one kind of brings back a lot of elements of for me. I don't like it near as much as I like Legacy of You or maybe some of the other West Kingdom trilogy games. I kind of feel like this, and I get what they're trying to do. They're trying to revive an older game and make it modern, make it kind of fresh and in line with some of their other stuff. Chronologically, I wish this would have come out like it is now back then, and I would have played that first and then play some of their other stuff. That would have made more sense to me, and I would have been like, oh, this is great. Yeah, this is awesome. This is new. This is something that I haven't experienced before. And then leading into some of their heavier stuff, I would have been like, oh my goodness, they made something great even better. This sort of feels like it's in the opposite direction. They took something that's great, and now it's kind of like, okay. Not that this is bad, it's just it's in a different direction than what I just explained to you before, right? Like taking something that was good and making it great. This is like taking something great and this is good.
Well, I think it's more they took the original and found a way to make it modern, but I wouldn't say that it's not as good. I would say that it's geared for a different crowd.
It absolutely is.
The current mode of Garphill games is becoming more complex, and for me, a complex gamer, I love the complex stuff that's coming out. I love scholars, and I can't wait to play inventors and paladins, and those are more complex. I feel like this took it to where it's more. It is in that first trilogy, which wasn't as heavy. Raiders of the North Sea was not. It was a medium weight game, and then expansions took up the complexity a little bit, and then from there, it went to Architects, and Architects was still on the lighter side of Garphill games, but it to me is one of the most approachable games to teach people worker placement mechanics. And I feel like this is kind of the same thing. It feels like it's right about the weight of Architects to me, to where maybe slightly lighter, to where it's going to reach that gamer that's maybe not as heavy of a gamer, doesn't really like super complex long games. So it kind of keeps that fresh for Garphill games, so that it's not we're just doing super complex, but we're giving you something that's revamped and updated, so it's still current, and they're good about not forgetting series. Whether it's they took Raiders of the North Sea and those expansions and made Raiders of Scythia, which I still have and really enjoy as well. Or they take this, or they're keeping that niche alive for people, and I feel like that's what this is. I feel like it's very approachable, that gamers that are new or gamers that game are going to enjoy this. I feel like this is a really solid one that a lot of people are going to love. But it is in a different direction than the heavier things of paladins and not architects, but scholars and inventors, and who knows what the East series is going to bring.
But I think you would agree with me that there are
Empire, I think it is.
Okay, there you go. I think you would agree with me, though, that there are some things about this one that just doesn't maybe feel like the same type of game like you would get from Garphill. Like you were mentioning about the luck of the draw being a huge factor with this one.
Well, it's not a huge factor because it doesn't happen super often, but the drafting to me is my favorite part of the game. I feel like in this game, I can draft well, and I really liked the two-player draft. I think two-player is my favorite way to play it, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. But in the drafting, I'm taking cards that I know I don't want other people to have, and I'm trying to get cards that I want also. So after the draft's over, a lot of these cards will allow you to gain new cards, which you're you're discarding cards to get cards. And yes, that is a strategy, but even in every game I've played, someone can just get a bunch of those cards, and they're just getting, because a lot of your cards you're getting just to discard, so you can get resources to build that one ship or one ship and a hut, and you need the people, and you may not need the person. If you can blind draw and get, 2 Jarls, well, now I've got the 2 gold, so what does it matter?
Right.
I need them because I can just use a laborer, and you can discard cards to get another card, to discard a card, to get another card, to discard a card, and luck into the card you want. So I would say there's two things that are not my favorite thing about the game. And again, this game's not really geared at me per se, because I like more complexity and the less luck of the draw, I guess, that you could get, and more complex, and not simultaneous play, which we'll talk about. It's my other thing that makes it not geared towards me, but you can luck into that.
Yeah.
But the drafting, the game is built on drafting and using those drafted cards to play, and I feel like I really like that part of it. Watching people discard cards to get cards and get lucky, that's because everyone that discards the cards has gotten lucky.
Well, what it does to me is it kind of waters down a little bit of the strategy, because I can say, oh, I'm going to go for this big old ship right here and only have 3 of the supplies that I need in order to build it, and I'm fishing for 3 more, and I draw a card. Oh, that lets me get one of those. Great. I draw a card.
You draw a card. You get a brown card that lets you discard 2 coins for 2 gold or something crazy.
I mean, it almost, and I don't want to make the game sound like, oh, it's just a coin flip. It's just luck of the draw. I got it or I didn't get it. But in some cases, it sort of kind of feels like that.
It doesn't happen the whole game, but it could happen in each game where someone's just hate card drafting to luck cards. Yeah. And at some point, you're going to luck into a card or 2. Even the last game we played, you did it again. And I'm like, see, that's the one thing that I don't find enjoyable. Other people, lighter gamers, they kind of like lighter, with more luck. And if it's a short game, like even in our game, it happened once. It's not a big deal. But when the game becomes and stays longer because you have 3, 4, 5 people and they don't play quick and the AP sets in, that's where it's like, okay, I don't want the luck because I'm still spending 2 hours, hour and a half.
The thing for me, this game didn't feel as much track progression as what I was initially expecting it to be. Like, the track progression is important, and getting these heroes is very important because it lets you do better things along the way, but it is extremely difficult to do. And I just don't understand how this is only worth 1 point because of how difficult it is.
Well,
do.
You can get here. I don't know if I'll ever see anybody get here, and the reason is because when you're drafting those cards, you may not ever see a card for the track you want to go up.
Yeah.
You might see the ones that you're in last place, and you're
like,
just.
Why would I go up that?
No, you're. Do I build something to gain points? Yes, I'm going to do that, but I'm moving. I'm moving a rune stone. To no place because it's not going to catch up. Next round, I don't see any of the other two, and all I see are red. Well, so it's the drafting and the chance you're going to see stuff makes it very difficult to move up the track. And so, I mean, it's part of the game. I don't mind that as much. To me, it's just the two things that make it less for me are the lucky drawing of the cards that can happen, doesn't happen often, and so I'm okay if it doesn't, if it just happens occasionally, but I know it's there. And then simultaneously play. I don't like simultaneous play. Even in After Us, I can play. I'll trust everybody's doing what they're supposed to. They make mistakes, but on top of that, people get AP, and it drives me nuts. That game...
Or taking back actions.
This game's similar to that. You can't sit and stare at the cards too long. It's only a 60-minute game. Look at it, decide what you want to do real fast, and don't take it back and move on. Because just like in After Us, people will get hung up. Oh, well, this card makes this arrangement better. Oh, but then I can put this. Oh, wait, no, we slide that. And it just takes way too long. You just look at the cards quickly as you're drafting, decide kind of your plan. You're only going to build one or two of them in a round, and whatever's in your hand at the end's got to go. So discard it, trade up for resources and stuff, and move on. But you got to just play. And on top of that, people make so many mistakes in simultaneous games, and it's just like so what we do now is I'll take my turn. I don't even care if I'll go first. I'm not going to spin forever looking at the cards. I do not care. I don't even care if we switch and you go first next time. I will go first every time. If that makes you happier and play faster, I'm going to play my cards, and it's your turn. I'm going to do all my turn, your turn.
And once you say you're done, you're done.
Yeah, just move on. Yeah. That, to me, is the best. I've tried it even where everybody does one action. That's the worst way to play. Worse than simultaneously play. Don't play one action at a time. That's horrible. But have someone, you can pick, you can switch it if you want. For me, I want the game to go faster, so I'm just going to go first. I don't even care. I'm going to just quickly play the cards I want to play, do the actions, and move on. And once you move on, which people still try to do, they want to go back and change stuff. I'm like, no, your turn's over. But that, to me, is the easiest way, because otherwise people are making mistakes. Because even in the last game, I was like, I don't think I took the wood. I don't care. I'm going to pay the coin. I'll pay an extra coin if I had to and take the wood. And if it hurts me, it hurts me. But I'm not going to sit here and just keep dragging this game on. This is a game that should be played in 60 minutes. And in 2 players, it can be done in 60 minutes. In 3 and 4 and 5, if you're playing simultaneous and don't care if people are making you just mistakes and taking AP, taking their turn because they're watching you take your turn and taking their turn back and stuff, it's going to be a little bit longer. It is. But you can play this easily 45, 60 minutes with 2 players if you don't have people hanging it up. And that's the way it should be played. And that's even with one person taking their turn, next person taking their turn, move on. I feel like that's, to me, the easiest way to play it. 2-player, the drafting is really nice in 2-player as well. To me, 2-player is the way to play this because it's meant to be a quick one, not super long. And I feel like 3 to 5. The drafting for 3 to 5 also. 2 people can be done and waiting on the other person to get the first card. Right. And we're, one person's too deep and I'm stuck waiting on someone else, and that can really slow it down. So
let's get to our scores on this one here, and I'll start off and let you guys know, like I said, I've played a lot of the Garphill games. I enjoy nearly all of the Garphill games. This one for me, I'm going to give it a 6.5. I think it's kind of a game that I'll play again. And if somebody wants me to teach it to them, I'd be happy to teach it to them. Be happy to sit down and play. If they need another player, I'd be happy to play this one. Personally, for me, I'm probably going to reach for some of the other Garphill games first. I keep coming back to Legacy of You because this is, as I was playing this one, it just kind of kept on going through my mind. This is kind of like Legacy of You. There's a lot of the same similarities. But at the end of the day, I think I'd rather play Legacy of You. And that's a solo-only game, so I mean, obviously you got to be playing it by yourself. This is multiplayer, so there's some differences there just in that regard. You can solo this. But I don't know. A 6.5 is kind of the game for me that I'll be glad to play it. I don't know that it's going to be the first one that I grab off the shelf. Hopefully that makes sense. It's fine. There's nothing that is bad about it necessarily. It just isn't the kind of game that I would typically, play from Garphill games. And I get that this is marketed for a different crowd. And more than likely, it's probably marketed more towards me than it is towards you, given the kind of games that we gravitate towards. Mm-hmm. But I think, I'd rather play Legacy of You. I don't know.
I haven't played Legacy of You, but I will say this. A solo game can be played with two-player cooperatively. Doesn't matter if it's Legacy of You, doesn't matter if it's Final Girl or Maximum Apocalypse. All those games can, usually play more, but Final Girl is solo only, and you can play that. I've played it with y'all cooperative to teach it. But I also thought that this would be one that Lance really liked, but I didn't know it was like Legacy of You, so...
let me be clear on that. There are some major differences, but in terms of I've got to get certain resources to be able to play this card, or I could just burn the card to get things on it.
I think that's
that's pretty
most
similar to a lot of
games.
Garphill games.
They do that a lot.
Yeah.
I do like that you can send your workers to the cards, or you have to use them to build things, which can really, if you don't have a worker engine going, and you're not you need to draft cards to get workers, but that's another thing to manage. I like the game. I think the game is solid. It's just not one that's really focused towards me as a gamer. Not knowing how much about the game, necessarily before knowing that it was a drafting game, which drafting games are usually not my favorite either. But I really like the drafting in this one. I think the drafting part of the game is super solid, especially in two-player. But
it is a unique draft. Yeah.
3 to 5 is a good draft. I really enjoy the draft. It's just one or two people can get hung up and slow down the draft. But I guess that could happen in any drafting game. Again, simultaneous games are just like real-time to me. They're not games I play. So if I can tweak it to make it playable, like I said, have one person do their turn, and then next round you can have somebody else do their turn first if you really want to, but it's a game where you're just doing your turn. So for me, it's how can I just keep the game flow going, and I'll just do my turn fast to get it over with and keep the game going. But for me, I think it's a 7. Again, I think it's super solid. I think for... just like I would tell people to play Architects as a worker placement game over Lords of Waterdeep to really teach worker placement, but also new ideas that are in modern worker placement games. That's what I would gravitate to. I would have someone, and the teach for this is super easy. I taught Lance in like 10 minutes, and I hadn't played it in a week or two. So it's real easy to teach, I think, especially after you've played it a little bit. Really approachable for gamers in general, especially those medium weight gamers might like it. Light to medium would like it. New gamers, easy to approach and teach. If they are familiar with Garphill games, it's going to be much easier for them because they're used to most of the symbology in the games and the iconography. There are some new ones, like the resource one is new. You do have like some of these tracks that are new. This ship is newer. But a lot of the idea, concept, and iconography is the same. So, are very similar. So, again, a 7 from me, which I'm surprised. I thought you'd be a little bit higher and this would be more your jam, but I guess it wasn't.
It's fine.
If it were,
it's fine.
I feel like if I was that type of gamer, this would really click for me. There are a lot of things I like. Like I said, using my workers on the ships and the drafting aspect of it, but it's not really geared for.
And I can't.
For me,
I guess for me, maybe it's not fair to do it this way, but I can't look at it in a vacuum, right? Like I got to look at it in terms of what other games are out there that exist that are similar to this, that bring the same sort of feel, the same sort of experience, and I can't judge it outside of that space. And it just so happens that I've played the other Garphill games that give me a lot of the same feels, but also give me more. And if I didn't have that experience, I would have a totally different mindset when it comes to this game. But I can't take that out of the equation, right? Like that's just not possible.
I mean, that's kind of what I'm saying too. Is it's not geared towards me. Yeah. If I'm looking at the shelf,
right,
I would probably grab Raiders of Scythia off the shelf. For me, I would, or Ezra and Nehemiah that's coming out soon, or Scholars, something that's or Paladins. I like the heavier stuff, so that's what I would do. But if you're someone that's watching something that's likes medium games or a little bit lighter, or just something that you can play two-player, because a lot of people watch and they just want a two-player game that plays well. Yeah. This is a really solid two-player game that you're gonna like. And you're going to, if you like those Garphill games and you like the Micho's artwork and you want to play a game that's similar that you can easily get to the table, play in about an hour and pack it up and do something else, this is going to be one for you specifically. If you want, if you have 3 to 5 at a table and you like the same kind of light medium games, this is going to be one that you might want to check out. But
for sure.
If you play the original and you want to see what's different, you love the original, this one's supposed to be different, but you may love this one too.
This one may be 100 times better than the original. I don't know. So
now you're just insulting people. Don't say 100 times better.
I don't know. I mean, I've never played it, so.
You can't say 100 times better. Exponentially 100 times better is like...
Okay, this could be a lot better. How about that?
And most people say 10 times better. You went to 100 like real quick. That's horrible.
Games...
The shade on this guy today.
Most games that have been made in the last 5 years generally are better than games that were made 10 years or more ago.
Sorry, classic Euro gamers.
It's true.
I played Luna the other day. That was over 10 years old, and everybody at the table enjoyed it.
There are exceptions, but generally the games that are coming out nowadays are of higher quality than most of the games that came out.
Maybe off of your shelf, but on my shelf, a lot of those older games were Spiel des Jahres winners.
There are some.
Or nominees.
There are a few, but they're the ones that keep getting reprinted. So
follow Hard to Master Games. We'll keep you up to date.
We don't always agree, if that hasn't been apparent in all of our videos. But there you go, guys. That's our thoughts here on Shipwrights of the North Sea. Redux. Or is it Redo? I think it's Redo. I don't know.
I'm Redux.
Redux, Redo. I'm not sure. Leave me some comments down below. Let me know if it's Redo or Redux.
Y'all love to correct Lance's pronunciation, so please give us a comment.
Keep it coming. Anyhow, this game is from Renegade Games. The publisher is Garphill Games, distributor Renegade Games. And we do want to thank them for sending us this copy to check out. So leave us some comments down below. Let us know what you think about Shipwrights. If you've played the original, let us know your thoughts on that. If you've played Redo or Redux, let us know your thoughts on that. If you like this video, please, please, please hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon to be notified of all of our great new content. I'm Lance.
I'm Jeremy.
And we are Hard to Master, where we take a look at games that are
hard to master.
We'll catch you next time.
We'll see ya.